So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast. And welcome everybody to the Mindset and Hustle Show. My name's Dan Latto, and welcome to Johnny. Hey Johnny, Happy New Year to you. This is the first session we've actually had in the new year. Dan,
good to be back. It is. How long in the year can you say Happy New Year? Okay, we're in the middle of the month almost. So.
Like, maybe that's the challenge for 2024 is every time you meet someone that you already know, but you've not said anything to, and it's July, and you go, oh, Happy New Year, I've not seen you since last. Like, that is the challenge for 2024.
It could be fun. I like
it's
remembering to do it would be the real challenge.
It's an opener at networking events, isn't it?
Yeah.
or something like that.
Everyone's like, have you met that weirdo that keeps saying Happy New Year to me?
And then they'll go, oh, you don't know the half of it. Oh, there's plenty more where that came from, Johnny, I can tell you. So I'm actually wrapped up in my electric blanket. Normally we put the fire on, but it's like just the fire, just for me. So I've got an electric blanket and I feel like I'm in my 80s.
No, it's okay. Although it's not on my legs, it has been all morning.
Oh, do you know what? Electric blanket was my purchase of 2023. It is so cool. I've got my feet wrapped up in it. I'm going to crank it up. In fact, I'm just going to live a little. And that was a purchase for 2023. And, you know, sometimes I go car camping, which is basically, we call it car camping because it sounds a bit more glamorous. But really, we're just sleeping in the back of a car because we're too tight to pay for a hotel, right? But now I'm like, oh, can we take the electric blanket with a battery and car camp inside an electric blanket? Like that for me. Honestly, Johnny, we are living the dream in 2024.
Now, I've seen on probably a Temu ad, right? Now I've said the word, I'm going to get flooded with it, right? But it's an inflatable thing you put in the car and it fills the wells, like the foot well and that. Yeah. So if you were keeping in the car, then it actually fills those bits where your leg would fall down. Quite ingenious.
That's awesome. I love that. And also the benefit of being short. I'm only 5'7", so I can sleep anywhere. Like airline seats, 3 in a row, not a problem.
You are revealing your true northern minge bagness. Basically.
Do you know, when I was my daughter knows that she's 9 now, and when I used to be poor, right, and it's all relative, isn't it? But when I used to be poorer, let's put it that way, I would go and stay at hotels, and then I would steal the toilet rolls and bring them back when I used to live on my own. I mean, I know you're laughing, but I'm living on potatoes and beans for a month. Do you know what I mean? Because I had no money at all. And whenever I got money, it would go into buying books or self-development or something like that. And it's always really funny because people go, oh, you don't know how hard it is. And it's like, dude, I lived on potatoes and I stole toilet rolls out of hotels, for God's sake. Don't tell me I don't know what it's like, because I definitely do. Honestly, Johnny, there's so much more. I'm worried about even telling you, quite frankly. Anyway, let's talk about, so I titled this one, Why Nobody is Coming to Save You in 2024. And I've had this, you know, I go on Twitter. I've got an anonymous account on Twitter, by the way. And the reason why it's anonymous is that you can say things on an anonymous account that people disagree with that you can't say on your own account because people will go and leave you bad reviews on Google, right? And obviously that then affects my business. But one of the things that we say to people, and we talk about minimum wage, and we talk about how energy prices have gone up and food prices and we can't afford to live and this, that and the other. And we've got 2 kids and the working for, what's it called? In Spain, it's Glovo. The guy on the bike delivering food, what's that called?
Uber or Just Eat.
Just Eat, yeah, whatever that is.
Deliveroo, yeah.
Deliveroo, right? And my argument with that is, yeah, but that's not meant for a 35-year-old man with 2 kids, right? That is an entry-level job. You've got arms and legs and a bike. Anyone can do it. There's no skill in there. So I have to have those arguments on an anonymous Twitter account. I can't do it on my own because everyone gets quite upset with you and leaves really bad reviews. But it reiterates a point that nobody's coming to help you. So the guy on the bike delivering his food and he's got 2 kids in a freezing cold flat. Well, whose fault is that? And really, that's what this conversation is about today, is about taking personal responsibility for where you are in 24. You might be in an amazing place. You might be in a really dreadful place. You might be going through a divorce because your wife cheated on you, let's just say, right? But whose fault is that? And you could say, well, it's not my fault. It's all her fault. It's like, yeah. But what about responsibility? What about personal responsibility? And I know this resonates with what you think as well, because this is what you deal with on a daily basis, right?
Absolutely. Inside my program, High Value Man, it's absolutely about men taking control of themselves and their lives and being the man they're meant to be. And you've hit some trigger words there, really, about responsibility, about clarity over where you are and who you want to be. And you touched on work and relationships. And the thing is, and I just actually by coincidence put a post up today about this, is that too often men think that their happiness is connected or dependent on the success of their relationship, the success of their business. Really, things that could go well, could go bad. And if we become too attached to them, then if they're going well good or if they're going bad, will determine how we actually wake up, how we experience our days. And more importantly, and quite honestly, more disturbingly, is it will determine our mental health. So one guy I was talking to this week about his relationship, I had to explain to him one of the core principles of High Value Man is that your relationship is the bonus on top of your life. It's not your life. And really, the title of today's episode about No One's Coming to Save You is that fundamentally the only person that's coming to save you is yourself. And when we're totally grounded in that, when we're really living it, like, do you know what? I know who I am. I know where I'm headed. I know what I'm up to. I make mistakes sometimes. I take responsibility for them. I laugh, a joke, I play. Like things do go wrong, and that's all right. That is the kind of man that can actually weather really any storm. It's the kind of man that can be completely happy and content. And it's the peace there.
I think you've hit something on the head as well, by the way. So it's this idea that you change your behavior dependent on what results you're getting. So let's just say, like, my CrossFit this year has been dreadful. I'm eating loads of food, put some kilograms on and so on, right? And so what happens is I look at the scale, recognize I'm putting more weight on. So then what do? Stop going to CrossFit every day. And it's like, well, I've put weight on. I might as well have that pizza and the donuts and all that chocolate I've eaten over Christmas as well. And it's like, that's just crazy. Why are you changing what you do on a daily basis based on the results that you're not getting? Surely that means you should double down on working out twice a day, actually getting back on your diet, because it's not the results that count, it's the actions. And we have such a focus on what are the results, because we do goal setting and all this positive stuff that we're supposed to do. And then when we don't get the result that we've set, even though we've done some of the work, and maybe we've done all of the work as well, right? But we still haven't hit those goals. You can do everything right and still lose, right? So then we give up, and it's this moving this focus back to just do the work. So in relationships, have you got date night? Have you cooked a meal for your missus? Have you bought her flowers? Have you taken her on a trip? Have you gone to the cinema? Have you gone bowling? Have you taken the kids out so she can have a break or a bath or whatever that is? And if the answer is no to any of that and your relationship's crap, well, why don't you do some of that first, right? And then she'll or he'll reiterate that back to you. And it's about you then taking the first step, but doing the actions that you know that you should be doing that's going to make a relationship work or make your business work. Forget about what the results is. If you still end up getting a divorce, then you can look back and go, yeah, we got a divorce, but you know what? I did everything right.
Yeah, completely. And bizarrely, some people, men, right, they'll say, well, that doesn't apply to me, or that's a load of bollocks. Oh, yeah, I've read about that. Oh, yeah, well, you would say that. Oh, fucking date night, as if that's going to make a difference. No, like, the thing is, it's what you just said, right? That just encapsulates your whole attitude towards this. And it's not about berating people or blaming them, but it is shining a light on things. So, again, it's no one's coming to save you. It's a degree of awareness. Whereas I say to all the men in High Value Man is like the Matrix, like, can you step back and look down upon the picture that's happening? Because when you're in the moment and you're having an argument about whatever's going on, or you're stressing about when you're in the moment, you can only see what you've really been doing that day or what happened to you in the last 48 hours. When you can step out of it and see, actually, I haven't really done enough here, or I haven't really looked out for her in a way that I haven't really considered her. I haven't really hired the right people. I've been trying to do too much on my own. I've not grown the team in the right way. Rather than saying, you didn't do this, you didn't make enough sales, you didn't. It's confronting for a lot of men, because they then take it as fault.
Of course.
And rejection even. And it shouldn't be that. It has to be a deeper sense of, and what happened before that, and what happened before that. And that, for me, you would have heard me say in lots of my videos, or even in these conversations, if we're taking my marriage as an example, I asked her out. Like, that's where it started, like 40 Towers. Like, you started it. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. You invaded Poland, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you did. Don't expect it to be a different way when you haven't been behaving in a consistent, like, set of steps to have it turn out the way you want it to have it.
And interestingly, we behave differently as the relationship progresses, because we get more comfortable with each other. We fart in front of each other. Not that I do that, of course, but other people, obviously. But the relationship changes. Like, we've been married for 10 years now, and obviously that relationship has changed, because it's going to, like any 10-year relationship. And so you can't expect the fire and the passion that you had in month one at month, what is it, 306? I can't do the maths. 1200. I can't do the maths. Whatever it is, 120. God, it's only 120 months. It doesn't even sound that long, does it, really, when you put it like that? Goodness me. And the other point I wanted to say was, it's not just, for example, about having date night. It's not the lack of date night that's made your relationship go down, or it's not the lack of going live every day that's made your business fail. That's just one small piece of the pie. It's a number of different things that you're not doing, and that, including date night once a week, that's not going to magically repair your relationship. But it's other things like listening, responding, caring about what's actually happened, planning the future together. And it's all of those things that I think you have to implement into your relationship or into your business, or whatever that's going to be, with the people that you're working with.
Oh, of course. And that's the measure between the action you're taking, almost like the tactical and the strategic action. And a classic mistake, did it myself, people use date night as an opportunity to chat about things. Oh, let's go out and like no, not at all. You don't go and try and repair your relationship on date night, because all of a sudden you then make date night tense and shitty. And if anyone's saying, like, well, we're focused on date night here, we're not. It's just an example. It's a very simple example to illustrate it. The strategy comes into, well, what would our relationship look like if I was beginning, and I love this expression, if I was bringing a beginner's mind to it? Like, what would a new relationship look like? Well, I probably wouldn't fart in front of her. I probably would put on a clean show. I would make a bit more of an effort. Like, what would it take for you to turn up and her go, wow?
Are you saying, Johnny, that you would not turn up in your high value man hoodie?
I know. A bit of. I bought t-shirts, running vests. all the new guys are getting kit, basically.
Very good. I like it.
But it's. I guess it's like it can be as simple as complacency, right? And if we pair those two worlds, complacency and consistency, that if you're consistently complacent, you're going to have a really deep backslide. And I say to my boy at school in particular, it's harder to catch up than keep up.
Yeah.
So a lack of complacency consistently, right? It's very bad, but so easy to do. Putting effort in, or putting focus in, and being consistent, you don't actually need to do that much. But again, that compound effect means that the consistent positive actions, day by day by day, will make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And taking my we talk about relationships a little bit here as the context is, me and my girlfriend, obviously we're both single parents, so we don't live together all the time. But sending her a message in the morning, and some kind of smiling emoji, it is just a little bit of spark, a little bit of energy there. And if you go into your business today and you're wondering, what's it going to take to create the business I want in 2024? Where's that spark? Where's that energy? What could you do a little bit different? If you weren't blaming other people for what's going on, what could you be responsible for? what was the conversation I had this week? Oh, it was about with one of my guys in the High Value Man group. He was talking about money, and he's been given an opportunity, an investment opportunity. Someone wants to buy a property off of him, and what they're offering him is lower than what he wants. Right? It's probably more of your wheelhouse, this, but it's been dragging on. And the thing about it now is it's a bit of a stink in the place. He's got all these plans, and actually there's this one thing it's not moving forward. Now the difference is a couple of $100,000. So you could say, wow, that's a big difference. I'm not just going to chuck a couple of $100,000 out the window. However, what tension, what friction, what turbulence is it causing is what is the question I put to him, to have it not moving forward. Now, all this time you're waiting for it to move forward, what could you actually have been doing with that money? What would you have freed yourself up with? I have this thing called the law of stuck. And if you're stuck in one area of life, like a car in the mud, you're going to be stuck in other areas. And in this set of circumstances, the conversation really was about, if you did the deal at that amount, it's been dragging on, right? There's other factors. It's not his fault it's dragging on, but it's a parish council, and it's not going to move quick, right?
Yeah.
I said, what would it look like if you just bit the bullet and did what you need to do? And the example I use, and I love it all the time, is the movie Pulp Fiction. No, not Pulp Fiction. Yes, Pulp Fiction. Yes. When they send in the wolf and he says, and it's obviously not the most PC movie to start with, let alone now, but because we've got the dead end situation here. And then they get this little cutaway where the wife comes home and she sees the dead body on the floor. And he goes, what we need to deal with is this right here, right now. So we move things forward. And in that moment, whilst it's not a perfect situation, the wolf comes in and says, what do we need to do right now to move this forward? And I said to this guy this week, if you had a wolf about this and you needed to be ruthless, also you need to be rational and not emotional, even maybe ruthless, what would be the decisions that you take to move this forward? Because if you had 1.2 million quid in your pocket and you're waiting for 1.5, what could you have done with that 1.2 in the time that this has taken, let alone the stress you freed yourself from?
Yeah. Very, very good. And the stress being released is even though you can't kind of quantify that in terms of money, like, is that worth 300 grand? Because it's not just for stress at that point in time, but then it's all the stress. The stress is removed earlier from the situation rather than in 3 or 6 months. And then, well, what could you have done in those 3 or 6 months? You could have paid off your house and paid off all your debts. And that feeling that you get of having paid everything off is amazing, right? And you can't kind of put a dollar value on that, even though we're talking about or pound values effectively. One of the things I've just done, by the way, because I know that, when we were talking about partners really and being romantic with the wife and getting the relationship back on track, one of the things you may have seen me typing. And so for those men out there that are kind of struggling for things to do that might be romantic, I went to our good old friend ChatGPT and I asked it for 10 romantic things to do. And I'm going to share with you what it gave. So if you ever get stuck on something, just go to ChatGPT. I've got a problem with a relationship. Oh, just do it. Oh, okay. Wonderful. So number 1, plan a slow food picnic, a leisurely picnic, outdoor cinema picnics. Seems to be a bit picnicky. Hot air balloon ride. It's like, can you book one of those somewhere near you? They sell them in WH Smith's, don't they, on Red Letter Day? A dance party at home. That might be a bit weird. Depends on the music. If it's hip hop, I'm not sure. Right? Take a pottery making class. That would be good. We've all seen, is it Ghost, where they're on the pottery wheel? That might work. Stargazing. Find a quiet spot to gaze at the stars. That's quite nice. And there's, I've got an app on my phone. It's called Starlight or something. And you point it in the sky and it'll tell you what all the stars are and where the moon is and what, the brightest star is usually like Mars or Jupiter usually, or if it's near the sun, it's Venus. But anyway, visit a local farm for simplicity of nature and pick some fresh produce. That's quite nice. Luxurious dinner. I think a dinner's a bit dull really because everyone's loves to go out for food, right? Sing karaoke. I think that would end in divorce, frankly. And then take a hike, explore the beauty of nature on a scenic hike. So for all those men that are struggling like ChatGPT is your friend with that.
Oh, listen, 100%. Say 100%. Everyone's saying it, Dan. I tell you,
It's only you, mate. It's only you.
On podcast, YouTube, it's flipping crazy. But it's about being willing to step out of your comfort zone, about being willing to do something a bit different, and that is the trap that we find ourselves in, or that too many people find themselves in. Is doing the same thing the same way. Even something as simple, right? If you've got a drive that you have to do regularly, take a different route. It's about like our brain becoming lazy and preconditioned, or we set it little challenges, or we're willing to take something on that we've had thought we couldn't be asked with. And if karaoke felt a bit weird, or if dancing in your house felt a bit weird, then that might be the exact thing you need to do. I know if we go clubbing, right, which isn't very often, if we go to a party and there's dancing, that moment where you first start dancing, right, it feels weird. It feels really, really uncomfortable. And that's why a lot of people, especially obviously we get older, they just won't dance. That's why you go to these 40th and 50th birthdays and everyone's bloody sitting down. But regardless of what we might have chucked down our neck when we were in our teens and 20s, if we're just used to doing something, turn up, music's on, have a few beers, dance. It's like, okay, great. I don't give it a second thought. And again, tapping back into the theme of today's show is that, if it's not now, then when? If it's not you, then who? And I love those expressions, and I use them to challenge the men I work with, because like, what are you waiting for? What if you're the difference? What if you need to be the difference? If you were the difference, what would you do?
Yeah.
Another one is, who is the man you want to be, or who would the man you're becoming, what would the man you're becoming do now?
Yeah.
That is really, really probably quite uncomfortable, a bit challenging for people. When you can put that, of course I'm going to feel uncomfortable. Okay, well, what's beneath that? Oh wow, I could make more money. I could fix this relationship. I could go and do something. I could meet someone new. I could make more money. I could. You've no idea what skydiving feels like until you check yourself out of the plane.
I think as well. So, for example, if we were to change the title, so today's title is "No One's Coming to Save You in 2024." If we change that to "No One's Coming to Save Your Marriage in 2024," and so there's probably less than 10 things that makes a successful marriage, right? 10 things that you can do. Be more attentive, book date night, ask questions. I'm probably out of ideas there, but like running a business, if we were to change the title, why no one's coming to save your business in 2024? Again, there's probably less than 10 things that you need to do. Improve your sales, which means you've got to market more, get your administration, plan better. It's funny, isn't it, how I can come up with more items for your business than I can for my marriage, right? Maybe there's some work I need to do there. Go back to ChatGPT again. But it starts with a question, I always find, and the more specific question. So how can I improve my marriage in 2024, for example, would be going back and maybe having date night. And all the things that you used to do and you used to organize when you first started dating your partner, and then we no longer do them. If you just do those again, then you'll never get it back to how it originally was, because it's not a new relationship, but it'll go 50% towards that, or 25% or 75%. It'll move you closer back to what that was. And it gives you a bit more variety and uncertainty and, the 6 human needs, and some certainty and some growth. If you're going to tie cooking classes together and you're not very good at that, then you've got growth together, and it's creating variety in your relationship. So for me, I think it always starts with asking a better question. So in relationships, it's how can I make my relationship in 2024 better than 2023? In business, how can I get more time off while making more money, for example? Or maybe you want to break those down into two separate questions. How do we make more money? How do I take more time off? And so it has to start from those questions. So I'm guessing in your group, you start from questions, really. From the conversations we have, it's clear that that's what you do.
Yeah, there's two core trainings, right? Two core pieces of foundational focus, like the 3XC formula, which is clarity, courage, and commitment. which is really your mindset. And then the second part, the fire code, it's really the habits and routines, like the actions we're consistently taking. And the reason that those two bits work together is that just to have a bunch of decent habits and start to get fit and start to update your cash flow and start to do date night, they will all help. It seems weird to say, well, all those little things are going to help. Well, yeah, they literally will. Like it is that simple.
As a collective.
Yes, someone who's doing those versus someone who's not. But it's not just the action. It's what it does to us. It makes us level up. It makes us become more resilient. It makes us become more consistent. As our relationship improves, our business improves. As our business improves, our relationship improves.
Yeah.
Spending more time with our children, then we're not worried about them. We're not round with them. If we're seeing our friends outside of our family set up, then we've got other things to look forward to. But if we do that without the mindset, if we do that without having asked the question of, why do I want this? Where am I even heading? What would an awesome life look like to me? Not second best, not what am I putting up with, not why is our relationship a bit shit, but hey, we'll stick with it, right? To actually be able to ask yourself, what do I want? Why do I want it? How am I going to start? How am I going to create it? Those are the important questions. And the why, with this quote I shared today from Nietzsche, that with a clear why, we can endure anyhow. Right? And that's the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations. When we know it doesn't matter what happens on the way, because where I'm headed to is an awesome family, the home I want, male suicide reduced by 50%, shared care as a right of every child around the world, access to both parents. Like when I'm thinking about why am I doing this, of course it's for me and my family, but then there's a bigger purpose. Yeah. And not enough people have that. So when if we just bring that down to basics again, if in your relationship it's like, well, she should be more this so that I'm happy, that is a shitty why, right? There's nothing empowered about that as a why for your family.
Yeah. What would be a good why, do you think, for something like a relationship where, and obviously you deal with a lot of men on a daily basis, and obviously then therefore because it's men, it's also one-sided. But what would be a bigger why, do you think, for people if they can't think of one? It's crazy, isn't it? You can't think of a bigger why, but for people out there.
Yeah. So a classic one is, so I'll say, what? Oh, for my children. Right? But then your children are a pain in the ass. You think, oh, fuck, especially if you're divorced, right? Do you know what? Go to your mum's. I don't even want you here anymore. Like,
yeah.
Whoa, right?
Yeah.
How we are to our kids will determine how they are to their kids. And that's when you get to see this, like, ooh, that's a difference. And then who we are, who our children are to their friends, again, wow. And if your children were ever to become famous or influential, what would you want them to say about you? Not in a selfish way, but when someone says, flipping hell, Mother Teresa, like, how did this happen? He said, well, my mum always instilled in, my dad always instilled in me the importance of care and responsibility and doing something that made a difference in the world. And then you realize that who you are to your kids is making a massive impact in the world, even if you can't see it now.
I think that many people don't actually see it now. So, I mean, tonight, for example, I've got a sleepover with my 9-year-old. So she's so excited about it. And I try and get as many sleepovers as I can because she's not going to, in a few years, it's done, right? Less than a few years. So we've only got a limited number. It might be tonight, might be the last sleepover ever, right? It might be a few more and that's it. And so that's really important. But how many times do you hear people, sometimes you see it on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, and they're saying, but my dad always said, or my mum was the kindest person, she'd do anything for it, and that's why I am. And it's easy to be on the outside looking in and going, oh yeah, I can see that. But when you're dad, it's really difficult to not to be able to see that that's actually what your kid thinks of you right now, because your kid doesn't mention it. And they're not going to mention it for maybe 20 or 30 years on until you're 6 foot under, right, and dead. I remember saying, I remember my dad sleeping over and we'd sneak down for sweets and we'd play Frustration, the board game, which we play. Do you remember Frustration with the thing? Yeah. And it's like, and I know that I'm building memories, but I have to be very consciously aware that that's what I'm doing, because it's not something that I actually understand. until my wife might go, she's going to remember these days for the rest of her life. I'm like, shit, yeah. Sometimes you can't be bothered doing things. Can we go to the dog park? You're like, oh, I've got this bit of work to do and I don't really want to do it. I don't want to go to the dog park. And you're like, oh, but I've got to get this done and I'm on a clock. And it's really difficult sometimes because you actually want to do the work. You don't want to go to a bloody dog park. It's cold. Got to wear my hat. Dog eats poo. It's stressful, And anyway, we went and it was wonderful. But sometimes it's really easy to forget that that's what you should be doing because that's what your kids are going to remember when you are dead and buried. And that's all they're going to have left of you. And I think that can be really difficult. And I think a lot of men, and I think mostly men, right, don't actually understand that or appreciate that anywhere near enough. I think women understand it. I don't know why women understand it. I'm not a woman. But I don't think men do.
No, well, that's a deeper subject in itself. 2 world wars, let alone anything else that's happened, wiped out a generation of men around the world. The shifting influence of church on community, and not that we all have to have a faith, but as a set of moral guidelines that has been eroded. And then what we've got without strong men is kids growing up all over the place and doing flipping crazy shit. They've got influence. They're being more influenced by YouTubers than
Andrew Tate. Yeah.
Well, I don't have a huge beef with Andrew Tate, right? It's like everything. If you read the whole Bible, there'd be some stuff in there that would shock you, right? So it doesn't mean you chuck out all the good bits as well. But and he's not perfect, right? So in the absence of someone else, there he is, right?
Yeah.
Men, there is a deep need right now for men to become more self-aware individually, but also aware as the masculine, creatures on this earth, in the energy that we bring to it. Yeah. So when responsibility comes into parenting, who our children are going to become is on us, and who the planet or what the planet is going to become is on us. So the stronger moral compass and the more difference we make, and the particularly in divorces, it's something that's quite close to my heart as well, is that, and I see this in so many scenarios with men I work with that are going through divorce, is that when they take the higher ground, when they're able to see past the burning pain of the instant moment, they actually have an influence on the situation. You can't feel it in the moment, but when they're like, do you know what? I'm not okay with that, and I'm not going to stand for it. But what I am going to say is, generally speaking, you're a pretty good mum, and if we could just co-parent and move forward, that would be perfect. Now, it doesn't make a difference when you say it once. You have to stay true to it and keep rising above it. Also, staying consistent, not letting go of what matters as well. But it's not a slanging match. It's not a deep fight. It's not she's not coming back because you didn't have her last week. There's stuff that goes on there that when you can see the bigger picture, something miraculous happens. You start to drain the energy away from the other side, and results start to turn your way. And so we've gone a bit deeper on this subject now, but I think it's really perfect, because when you see who you're being in the situation, when you see the energy you're bringing to it, that is so powerful. And it's that creates the ultimate outcome. And like a ripple effect, it might not be the first ripple. If you're lucky, it could be the third or fourth ripple. There'll be a millionth ripple that we will never, ever even see. And that's when you have to know who I am is making a difference. What I'm taking responsibility for is impacting the world. What you learn, how much you laugh and play, how many adventures you go on. It's like, whoa, okay. Now that is something I want to get up for in the morning.
Yeah. And I think as well, there's a level of self-reflection, which we've talked about in previous shows, where a man might respond in a particular way, which is not actually conducive to the situation. And then afterwards, we kind of beat ourselves up over it. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, and I shouldn't have done that, and so on. And I think an acknowledgement that, yeah, that's because we're human. And it's not necessarily because we're men. It's just because we're human, and other genders make mistakes as well, and then regret things that has been said and things that we've done. But that moment of self-reflection where you can go, okay, yeah, I reacted in this particular way and I don't want to react in that particular way next time. And then okay, well, what would be a better way for me to react? And consciously be aware and consciously decide, okay, the next time that happens, this is how I'm going to respond. But just being more conscious about it instead of being like a robot and just being automatic with a curt response. You know, when someone hurts you, it's easy to be curt and try and hurt them back, rather than consciously going, okay, if I said that actually because they're in a particular place themselves and I'm not in that place, but now they're turning me into that place, how about I don't go into something negative as well? And that can then help the situation and help take better control of that situation. But you need that level of self-reflect in your life to be able to go, okay, I don't want to behave like that anymore. This is the new me. This is the me in 2024 and so on.
Yeah. And what you're touching on there is about anger and emotional responses, right? And too often men perceive their anger as something someone else was doing, something someone else created. Now, quite honestly, that will generally be true. She said this or they did that, and then I got angry and responded. But what we have to see is that when you respond like that, it means that your nose is that close to the glass, or like the boiling milk, right? There's no space for it to bubble and then come back down.
Yeah.
It just bubbles over straight away, or you bumped straight into the glass because it's that close. You have to say to yourself, why am I that close to the limit? What do I need to be responsible for so I'm not that close to the limit? So there is a bit more grace so that I can say, oh, interesting that you should say that. I'm going to come back in an hour's time when, when clearly you're not quite so upset. Or that's a very literal example, but that's the difference between biting back and engaging and being able to say, I'm going to step back a bit and actually, or I think I'm about to let rip, and that's not really what I want to do in this moment. Our anger is a reflection of where we're at in terms of our actions matching our goals, our level of happiness matching our hopes and dreams for life. It's our willing, unless we've got a psychological issue going on, the frequency at which we lose our rag is actually a measure of how disappointed we are with our overall experience of life.
Yeah. And it's interesting because over Christmas, I've had a situation where something has erupted, and it's not to do with me specifically, but my daughter and her relationship and so on. And then, so I had a big falling out, and then he phoned me, and that conversation was heated from his point of view, but not from my point of view. And I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, I'm very surprised you didn't kind of, explode as well. And I'm like, well, why would I? I can go to war at any time. Why would I go to war first thing? How about we try and resolve the matter first and have some patience? And he was upset because he's going through a difficult situation himself without a support mechanism in place. And I've been through that as well, So for me then to step away, and he then calmed down and was fine. And so it didn't explode into World War III. And that's not to say it might not next month. If the situation arises where it might have to, then I can step up to that. But why go to war on day one when you can go to war on day 400 or not, or year 10 or not at all? How about you've got all these other options rather than exploding at your missus or your husband or your co-worker? Well, you've got all these other options. Let's explore them first. Oh, okay, fuck it. They didn't work. Now I'm going to explode. Okay, fine. But at least it's a conscious decision, not an emotive one.
Yeah. And it's important to say, I've got this wrong for years.
Yeah.
My whole life. I mean, I've got this wrong up until the last few years.
When we're talking about kids, you will always be baby daddy and she will always be baby mummy. And there is no getting around that whatsoever. And if you react in a particular way, they're going to remember that for the next 50 to 60 years and deal with you because of that for the next 50 or 60 years. So you can make one bad decision or say something really bad that you really shouldn't be saying, and then that can affect your life for the rest of it. And you've actually forgotten about it, but they haven't.
Yeah.
And so you have to, this idea of taking a step back, my dad would say, Danny, count to 10. I was never, ever very good at that. I have a short fuse. I'm an emotive. passionate, whatever you want to call it, right? And I think they're just bullshit words to cover the fact that I have a short fuse. Right? But like taking conscious effort of that and being able to control that in certain situations has dramatically improved my life over the last 5 years, say. And I'm not perfect at it, and I don't think I'll ever be perfect at it because I'm just not built that way. And that might be an excuse as well. Maybe there's more work to be done there, and that work will continue. But it's definitely improved it from being able to go, you know, like you were saying, having your nose right up against the milk that's blowing over, like being able to step back a little bit and bring yourself back down and put some distance between you and the thing so that you can actually come up with a solution that's not aggressive or shouty or upsetting for the other person. That's going to get you so much further in life. Very difficult to do, I think, for a lot of men, because we have this thing called ego and we don't like people taking the piss out of us. And, you know, it's very difficult, whereas women are less aggressive in that way, I think.
I in terms of experiencing it being harder for men, or men seeming to struggle with it, I do agree with that. But as to it being hard to do, I'm not sure I agree with that. Because when you put the work in, when you start to understand, if you have a willingness to understand more about what drives our emotions and why do men think the way they do, and what does fulfillment look like, and it is that awakening where we suddenly have to realize I'm not governed by my thoughts and feelings. Experiences around me are not just happening accidentally and randomly to mess with me.
Yeah,
it is a deeper understanding and consciousness, which clearly not everybody wants to entertain. But as ridiculous as this analogy says, it's like buying a dangerous dog and then not understanding why it bit you or flipping mauled your kid. It's like you just didn't have any understanding of what was going on there.
Yeah.
If you'd have gone and got a different dog, you could have had a different outcome.
And actually, using the dog example, depends on how old the dog is, because the dog could have been brought up to do that. Like, not consciously, the way that it has been brought up, that's its first option. So for me, for example, and I think we're opposite here. So if, like, I would say that old school Dan was more likely to be more aggressive to get the result that I wanted than negotiable to get the result. And I think you were probably more negotiable to get what you wanted than aggressive. Is that, would you agree with that? Is that fair to say, do you think?
Yeah. In my younger years, it was much more about my personality. And I used confidence as a way to make things happen. And I think pushed on a subject, I would have been flaky because I was too scared for it to go the wrong way, too scared to lose someone's love or friendship.
So that programming right there, once you've got that program, which happens in the first up to 8 or 9 years of age, really, that programming is very difficult to come off, because, you know, if you chop you in the middle, it's written like a stick of rock all the way through. And so as you then go into your teens, you might reinforce the original programming because that's what's got you to here and has been successful to getting you here, negotiable or non-negotiable, right? And then as you get older, you realize, actually, it should be a combination of both. There's nothing wrong with being aggressive, but being aggressive all the time, that's not going to get me anywhere. And then being negotiable all the time, you know, sometimes that needs to be more aggressive. And I don't mean physical violence. I just mean more assertive, I suppose, is a better way than aggression. And as you get older, especially into your 40s and 50s, you realize, no, it's a balance between these two things. And so that's definitely what I'm working on. And sometimes I fail miserably. And sometimes I'm like, I didn't get really upset when a guy was shouting at me down the phone and saying all sorts of stuff. I was actually quite calm about it. And and my wife was like, that's different.
Yeah. And she's seen that evolution. But the difference, anyone watching or listening to this is on that journey.
Yeah.
So to some degree, we're either educating them at the start of that journey, and that's great, or we're reinforcing what they've learned. But for me and for many men and women, I guess when they're younger, but this could happen at any age, is that I was not aware of the machine that I was driving. I just thought the machine was driving. I didn't realize I was driving the machine.
There's a choice, right?
Yeah. So it's that level of awareness. It's that level of control and sophistication where I'm able to notice, and it is a bit Matrix-like, where I'm able to slow things down and go, oh, wow, I'm about to lose my rag here. Or something's going on inside. I'm about to react to something that she said. Actually, I'm going to let it go. Or actually, I'm going to say, do you know what? We said we weren't going to do that. And they're like, oh, whatever the scenario might be. But it's like a flipping Jedi skill where you're able to slow time down and see what's about to happen and then flip back around and have a look at how you're being and go, okay, yeah, I get it.
So
the next thing I do is going to make the difference. Which is it going to be? What am I going to choose?
So we would call that in NLP a pattern interrupt, where you go, and I've done this with my kids. She was upset. She was like 4. She was upset at mum's, and I'm on the phone, and I'm like, "Can you smell popcorn?" And she's crying, and then she stops crying. Now she's sniffing for popcorn. Right? That's a pattern interrupt. I actually used it on someone last week as an example. Oh, it was someone who's training to be a solicitor, and we're having coffee and cheesecake, which we do every Friday before we come live. And I used it on her, and she was like, she's a total pattern interrupt because she was going down this path, she's getting upset, and so like pattern interrupted it, and then just brought her straight out of it. But recognizing that you need to pattern interrupt, that's the difficult bit right there.
I am so doing that with my daughter.
Right, Johnny, wonderful to speak to you yet again. Thank you very much for your time this Friday, and then we'll catch up with you on next week's show.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who wants to chat with me can get in contact, and I love these get-togethers on Friday, Dan. I hope to continue them, and I hope they're of value to people. Give us a little review over on iTunes or Spotify, or drop something in the comments to let us know what you got out of today's show.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. See ya.
Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.